So I think we might give it a start. So welcome and thank you for all of those who have attended. We'll start off with an acknowledgement. So I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we're all meeting. And I pay my respects to their elders past and present and those emerging leaders. I extend my appreciation to their cultural heritage, spiritual connection with this land. I acknowledge my gratitude that we share this land and sorry for some of the costs of that sharing and believe that we can move to a place of equality and shared partnership together. All right, thank you so much for joining us today. We know that learning about fostering can be quite daunting, but also exciting at the same time. Today, we hope to share a little about who we are at Life Without Barriers, what fostering is, and how it might work for you and your family. This is a great opportunity during this webinar to learn about who we are at Life Without Barriers, what we value as an organisation in helping children and young people. In fostering, you will be part of a team supporting a young person. So it's really important that you get to know us and feel comfortable with the team that you may be joining. Fingers crossed you will. We'll talk a little about what fostering is like. So we'll talk a little about what it's like and why children come into care, as well as who those children are and what their needs are. We'll explain the different types of care that we provide at Life Without Barriers, as well as the approach we take to make sure that children are supported in the best way possible. So basically, what's our approach? And what you're all hoping to know is what makes a good carer. We'll talk about what the role of being a carer is like, who makes a good carer, what the steps that are involved in becoming a carer. We'll also take some time to answer some common questions, so frequently asked questions that we get that many people have. So just as housekeeping, you all know where your toilets are, so if you need to go to the toilet, just go, that's fine. We ask if you can put your phone on silent, and we'll go for about an hour. We ask that if you have any questions along as I'm presenting, can you please put those questions in the chat? Louise, who you'll see there, will monitor the chat for us. You might find when we get to the frequently asked questions, your question is answered. But sometimes we get ones we haven't even thought of, so we really like to hear what you'd like to know, and maybe it might even inform how we improve this session. So who is Life Without Barriers? So we're a leading national social purpose organisation established about 3 decades ago by a determined group of community members who had a clear vision, and that is to partner with people to improve their lives for the better. We provide people with services and assistance so that they can achieve their goals and maximise their opportunities to participate as fully as possible within society and to the level that they wish to. We also partner with communities, elders, government and the private sector to ensure we can achieve positive long-term change in the lives of people we work with, within over 23,000 individuals in over 400 communities. We do support people through providing a range of services, which do include foster care and family supports, disability supports, aged care, mental health, refugee and asylum seeker support, homelessness, and many more. We like to tackle social issues head on. So our values. So our core values are what really define not just how we look and how we talk, but most importantly, by what we do. So we work together to deliver our services to demonstrating hopefully all those values. So as we're a people too, relationships come first. So building those really important relationships with young people, with government departments, various different stakeholders, but also with carers is really important. And in developing those relationships, listening is a really important area that we need to help to understand what's going on for young people in care, but also what it is for carers in providing those safe homes. We're imaginative in our thinking, and we're always open to new ideas and ways of doing things. We can't have possibly thought of everything and every solution, so we really like to hear different ideas. We're respectful and caring in our dealings. We see the big picture, but never lose sight of the small detail, and we welcome diversity. We're responsive to needs and determined to get things done, but more importantly, to do them really well. We're also courageous in our convictions, and we stand up for what we believe in. So what is foster care? So at the end of the day, foster care is about providing a service to children and young people who cannot, for whatever reason, live safely at home with their families, either in the short term or in the long term until they reach the age of 18. The department, the government department, the child protection system, has the responsibility of identifying children and young people who are at risk, and together with the court system may decide that children are best to be cared for in foster care, where support at a particular period of time is not able to be provided at home. In the meantime, the system does want to support parents so that children can eventually return home, as that is the very first goal of any young person coming into care, is to work towards getting back home. As long as it's all worked out by the department and the whole care team that it's safe for everyone to do so. Where that continues to not be possible, we look at foster care as providing a safe, secure and stable home for children so that they can grow, heal and thrive. We're always looking for more people to open their hearts and their homes to fostering. So you might have heard about fostering called foster care, out-of-home care or family-based care. With nearly 50,000 children unable for whatever reasons for a period of time to, safely be at home in Australia, we're always looking for foster carers. Never have enough. So why do children come into care? So there are many reasons why children come into care. While each child has a unique set of needs and experiences, almost all come from complex family and social situations where they may have suffered neglect, abuse, or trauma. Some children that enter care may have experienced or witnessed within the family home ongoing exposure to family and domestic violence. So that's where a lot of the physical, emotional harm occurs for them. We know that statistics tell us that overwhelmingly the reason children come into care is due to neglect or parents not having the capacity to meet the needs of a child and provide a safe environment. So social issues like poverty and a lack of support systems are key contributors to why neglect is such a significant reason for children needing foster care. So we know a big issue at the moment across the country is housing. So neglect would be an area that a parent is having to reside with their children in a car because there's just not any properties available. And we know that that's not a good way to bring up children is while residing in a car. So another common reason is issues for parents such as mental health or drug use. So parents may need a period of time to be able to address their mental health conditions or their drug use issues. So they may need to spend a period of time in drug rehabilitation or a psychiatric hospital to get back on top with their mental health. So for a period of time, the child needs to remain in foster care so that they can have that safe and caring home environment while the parent addresses their issues. So another rare case is around parental death. So that's where, you know, no other family members are able to be located to provide care. The other big area is where a child with significant needs, and this generally comes in the area of disability, where the child may have grown so big or may have such huge needs that the parents are unable to provide and meet those needs. So who are children in care? So they are aged 0 to 17. So we know 18 is the adult age. In our country, we also have that only court orders issued by the Children's Court can go up to 18. Many of the children, young people that come into care also come into care with a group of siblings, and wherever possible, we hope to keep sibling groups together. So staying connected to their culture and identity. So they come from a variety of cultural and linguistic backgrounds. Some are newly arrived families who have experienced trauma and war. Others come from cultural backgrounds that are well established in Australia. So wherever possible, we will always try to match young people, children, with carers who share their cultural and linguistic background. If this is not possible, we work with our carers to ensure that children can stay connected, especially around their languages, maintaining their languages, their cultural traditions, their religious faith belief practices, because that's part of their identity and part of their families. Another area in terms of culture is our past and ongoing practices in Australia has meant that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders are 10 times more likely to experience a care system more than non-Indigenous. There is an Aboriginal placement principle enshrined in the legislation that aims to keep children, whilst they come in care, to be placed as much as possible within their own country and also within their community. If that's not possible, we also work with carers to build their competency so that they can provide care to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children. The other important thing about children in care is they have families already who are important to them. So these families will always be important to them regardless of what stage of their journey of being in care, whatever the court may order, whether they're long-term until they reach 18, families will always be important to them. The children will always need to have family, siblings, and extended family. So you can imagine grandparents who haven't done anything wrong still need to have those relationships. They're really important, and we need carers who respect that. We'll always support families and carers to build strong relationships that are in the best interests of children and determined by a whole team that works around you. We know that when children are first removed, we have to always, as a system, see if we can get the children back home. So it's always, once it's safe, that they get home as soon as possible to their family. We also need carers who will really support that reunification process in partnership with Life Without Barriers and the families. So children in care have all suffered a form of trauma of some sort. So by the mere fact that they've been removed from their family causes trauma. The feelings of separation, loss and grief at being away from their family and the home that they've known is hard for children to manage. It doesn't matter how bad it was at home, that's what they've known. So they require a lot of support around that grief and loss. They may have also, coming into care, lost connections with family. So sometimes parents react by just disappearing. They might miss out on catching up with their friends. That was so easy to do. You know, a neighbour next door might have been a friend the same age that they felt safe with. There's school, so sometimes it's very rare and we don't like to move children from school to school, but sometimes they may have to move from a school that could have essentially been the only safe place that they've known. Excuse me. The other thing is that they may lose this connection to a sport or any kind of hobby activity that they were really engaged with, dance and so forth. So they'll really need a safe environment to be able to express that loss for them. Excuse me. But at the end of the day, at the heart of it all, children in care are ordinary kids that have had an out-of-ordinary experience. So they still have the same dreams and aspirations and hopes that every child we know and love have. So you'll see Karen there was someone who was a young person who came into care at 12. It's an adult now. He's got a full-time job and excited about buying his first home. He puts a lot of his, I suppose, achieving his goals and being healthy down to the support that he received from his carer. So different types of care. So there's lots of different types of fostering available. So when it comes to fostering, no two children or two families are the same. Some children may need foster care for a few nights, while others will need a more permanent home. Types of fostering provided by Life Without Barriers really, generally look at the respite, emergency care, short-term care, and long-term care. So it's really important about being aware of the different types of care because it requires a different level of commitment, and it can work really important on reflecting on how fostering might work for you and your family. So respite care for us is we like to think of it as a very planned approach. It's a great option for people who may not have a lot of ability and time to commit to other types, such as short-term. But it's really an experience where children who have full-time carers, or what we call primary carers, are able to have time with a regular, consistent respite carer. Could be for a weekend, it could be for a week during school holidays. It really helps for the primary carer to get a bit of a break and recharge their batteries. But most importantly, it really helps and assists young people to extend their network and experience adults differently who they really need to begin to trust. I'm going to take a drink. So it could be as a respite care, thinking about like you're an aunt and an uncle relationship. So you're strengthening the networks for the kids and providing that opportunity for the full-time carer to get a bit of a rest after a busy week. So the other area, emergency care. So this is an area where carers really need to have a high degree of flexibility and availability. Often there's no notice or very short notice that a child needs to come into emergency care. It also requires carers who have an ability to provide that instant extra support for children and young people because they've just had to be upheaval. It's a big change. It's a lot of uncertainty around for what happens next for a child. It's usually up to for a period of 4 weeks. So it could be that a child has been removed quite quickly by the government, and the government needs a period of 4 weeks to gather information to determine what should happen next for the child. And it could be in that 4 weeks they go home. So the government has found that the parents are actually doing some good things well. They just need some extra support. It could be where a child has been with a primary carer, especially a kinship carer, who, as they age, has become unwell and may have developed a life-threatening condition. So they need to find another long-term placement, but the child has to go into emergency care. Another great reason for emergency care may be to give the department time to look for kinship. So looking for extended family, because we know that's best for the child. If they can't be at home with their parents, at least that they can be with family members. So it gives them time to see if there's anyone around. So short-term care is really, it's a little bit more planned than emergency care. And often the time frame of short-term care can be unknown. It's up to 6 months. It's really about initially for a child and for the system, the government, to determine what needs to happen for a parent. So if you think about some of the reasons that I talked earlier about children coming into care, maybe mum has to attend a drug rehab program that's live-in, and it may be for a 6-month period. So once they address all their issues, it's all safe and fine for them to go home. The short term requires carers who really can work within the team to address some of the needs of a child, so that safe and stable place, so that they can begin to heal, thrive. So it may be lots of appointments with speech or OT or psychologists. It's also really important in this space that they're able to build on those relationships with their families. So we really don't want to sever that disconnection too much. The more that they have the connection with their family, the better the chances of reunification occurs. So long-term is really looking at, it's more than 6 months. So it's really determining by the child protection authorities that the young person can't return home. So it's really that commitment to support a child right through into adulthood, really focuses on stability and permanency, and that consistency. So when we ask carers that they're putting their hand up for long-term, this is right through until they reach adulthood. And it really helps, that one around that healing and thriving, addressing their issues, well as maintaining those connections. So what are our approaches to fostering? Is we believe that everything we do has an evidence base to guide us in how we provide the best opportunities for children and young people. So to best support the possible outcomes for children and young people in our out-of-home care, we've implemented an evidence-informed therapeutic model of care, which comes from Cornell University, that is grounded by 6 principles of care. So, and we look at care is about creating conditions for change. So we use the care model to really guide how we work with children and families. It's a trauma-informed model, influencing the way we think about children and the way we approach children. It focuses on the relationship we have as carers and also our staff from Life Without Barriers, to help children build new competencies, and guides our interactions with their children and families. So we really look at trauma affects how children develop. So it's really focusing on, even though they may be 9 or 10 and what would be normally accepted in terms of development, maybe their competency has been disrupted due to trauma. So we really need to focus on that. So it really helps us in that way. So in terms of looking at the different types of carers that we have and the different walks of life that they come from, so we need carers from all areas. There's a couple of videos, and Louise will put the links into the chat. Due to technical issues, for some reason, I don't understand technology very well, we can't play them for you, but be really good to have a listen to them. So goes from someone who's been a carer for a very long time. We also have a couple there who also provide long-term for 0 to 5-year-olds. And then there's Stacey, who was a young person in care, and how that experience was for her. So I really encourage you after to have a look at those. So what's my next bit? So what do we look for in carers? So children in care have usually had some really tough experiences in their lives, and they really need help to understand and move through those experiences. So the experiences may have meant that children haven't learned to understand and express how they feel, and the only way to let it out is through how they behave. So we really need, kids in care need special people to be able to provide that safe space for them to be able to do that. We know that great carers have some great attributes that we look for. So these are beliefs and ways of being and values that make them open, accepting, and stable people for the young person to lean on. We know that great carers are resilient and able to weather a storm that hard days bring. They're also great at celebrating the small wins with young people. We know that great carers are patient, warm, and empathetic. We know that no one carer has all the answers. So great carers for us are open to learning ongoingly, on the run sometimes, every day. They're really keen to ask for help. So don't hesitate in asking for help, especially when they know they need it. They're also great at accepting help. So sometimes we don't always know we need the help, but there are people around you who have experiences in the system and the experience in generally how young people might be expressing to their behaviour. So they're really great at accepting help. We also know that great carers are really great at working as a member of a team. So we like to build at Life Without Barriers a team around a young person. So we call them a care team. We know that great carers are curious about what's going on for a child. So having that sense of wonderment, like I wonder what must have happened for him or her. So they're always wanting to have that sense of curiosity about, you may not know exact details about what happened for a child, but you're curious to find out more. We know that caring for children in care is quite different from parenting your own children. So having the time and space available in your lives and hearts to be able to provide all the attention and attachment a child needs is key to being a great carer. We know that family will always be important to children, and preserving those relationships for the young person is really important. And great carers are open to knowing family and supporting children to explore and talk about their family connections, and be open to, carry the stories creatively, even if they can't see their parents for whatever reason, or grandparents. It's still being able to talk, maintain memorabilia is really important. So great carers at the end of the day have the underlying belief that all children can achieve great things with the right supports, environments, and people that believe in them. They know that everyone has their ups and downs, and there are going to be tough days and there's going to be good days. And great carers, we believe, are compassionate, flexible, and also like to have fun. Lots of kids just want to have fun. So who can be a carer? So people from all different walks of life. So for us, it's in Victoria, you have to be a minimum age of 21. Our preference is for around 25, but if you're 21 and you've got some relevant life experience, that's really good. You have to have the right to permanently reside in Australia. So you have to have that permanent residency or Australian citizenship. It's important that people are really stable, so well and healthy, but also a stable stage of their lives, because it's about supporting a child through a whole lot of uncertainty. So it would mean having time, space, and that emotional, psychological availability to be there for vulnerable young people. Part of this is making sure it's right for everyone in your home. So including your partner, if you have one, and any children living in the home. So it's really important that everyone in the home needs to be on board. So you can be single, in a relationship, any culture, faith. I talked earlier about if we have children coming from culturally diverse backgrounds, we really want to match them as much as possible within their own language base, their own ethnic background, religion, anyone from whatever sexuality or gender identity or expression. You also need to be willing to undergo all background checks. So that's really important that we do that. You can rent or own your own home. It's just that stability is really important. So if you're planning renovations in the next 6 months, we might say put off being a foster care. We don't like that uncertainty for kids and, different work people coming in, wires hanging from the ceiling, whatever. So, or if you're planning to move in the next 6 months, it might be best to wait until you've gotten established in a new place. So having a spare room in your home is really important. It's important for young people coming into care that they feel a sense of belonging by having their own space. Sometimes they'll also need a space to be able to retreat to, because sometimes things get overwhelming for them. We ask that you have a car and license. And as I said before, that everyone is willing and active about being part of this whole fostering process. So how do you become a foster care? So following on from this session, and if you haven't already done so, we'd ask that you connect and make an inquiry by completing a Call Me Back form. Louise will place that in the chat before the end. You'll also receive an email tomorrow morning with a recording of this session, but it also will have details of our website and also our national inquiry team. And they will be able to talk you through, answer any questions you have if you didn't get your questions answered this evening. Sometimes I also find 24 hours later, I've got another question I didn't think of. So they'll actually conduct an initial phone interview with you and really just checking if fostering is right for you and your family right now. If it's not, that's okay. We really respect that. You'll have an opportunity to be invited, what we call, to our nurturing program. And that's really just, we keep in contact with you via our newsletter. We just let you know about events coming up, and just keep you that linked in so when it's right for you. Obviously, if it's right for you, we want to chat and it goes through our system, and then it comes down to us in Victoria. And we will connect with you. We do home visits at the moment via Zoom and talk you through the process of how to make the application. It'll also be another stage of really talking locally what it's like here in Victoria. It's another opportunity for you to ask any questions. And you'll also have to go through the paperwork and getting started on background checks. So we do national police checks and international police checks if you've been overseas within a 10-year period. It's just really important we keep on giving you as much information as possible, because we want you to be able to make a really well-informed decision and really ensuring everyone's on board. So if it's all going well after that visit and we've got your background checks, you then attend our training. So there's 8 modules of training that everyone has to go through. It's a mandatory part of the process. provides you with some educative material around helping you to understand and prepare for your role as a foster carer. But it's also a great opportunity to meet other applicants. So you start to get to know other carers. We also have a great experienced carer who joins our module the very first, and her and her husband have been around for 10 years, have extensive experience, and great at presenting what goes on and what happens. So sometimes it's really good hearing it from an experienced carer. The next stage, you go through the training. The next will be our assessment process. So the assessment process is meeting with one of our assessors, who will conduct a series of interviews with yourself as applicants, all household members. Also with your children, your own children. We like to interview your own children, obviously depending on age. And it's really just exploring your capacity to provide that quality care for young people in foster care. We look at the different age groups, whether it's respite, emergency, short-term. So you look at our assessors, like I said before, have a bit of experience and expertise of fostering, but it's having those conversations about your motivation, how you manage stress, because a young person coming into your home who's experienced trauma just on being removed is going to cause an upheaval in your home. So we want to make sure, you know, that you're able to withstand the day-to-dayness of that. After the assessment process, the assessor, along with you, you get to see everything that's written about you, makes a recommendation for accreditation. So in Victoria, it's called accreditation. And that is, you'll know what we're going to be recommending. So it might be, we're recommending that you be accredited for short-term, you know, or I'm going to say long-term. A real big area is long-term for adolescents. Always need carers for those. And everyone will be over the moon and yahooing and high-fiving. So if you're going to do that, the more we can, it's great. So I'm just going to go through our most frequently asked questions. And we'll, like I said, if you can keep on putting questions in the chat, we'll get to those. But we've just compiled a few that might answer some of your questions. So I'm single, can I foster? So yes, you can be single. Talked a bit about that earlier. About 50% of our foster carers are single. We know that families come in all shapes and sizes within our community, and as do foster families. What's important is, if you're single, is that you have a reliable support network around you. And when you look to foster, which this applies to all potential carers, single or in a relationship, but you know, even being a single parent, it can be hard at times. So what makes it easier is having that strong support network around you. We're a same-sex couple. Can we foster? Of course. So Life Without Barriers really values diverse community of foster carers. We believe we are champions for equality and believe our caring community should represent those of the children needing care and society at large. You can be single, married, in a de facto relationship of any sexuality or gender. What's important at the end of the day is that you're able to provide a stable, loving home to children and young people. Can I foster even though I don't have children? Yes. Through the assessment process, we will look at your skills, so the experience that you have had interacting and caring for children, because it's really useful that you have some first-hand experience. For some, it's with nieces and nephews. For some, it's grandchildren. For some, it may be a particular profession, so someone who's a teacher or someone who works in childcare, a nurse, so they have an understanding of young children, and especially with special needs and medical needs. Nurses are great in there, or doctors. So we know it's just having those skill set that are transferable. So having the personal attributes that we talked about earlier is what makes you a good carer, not necessarily that you've been a parent and you know everything about raising children. So do I need to have a spare bedroom? Definitely. This is really important. I often imagine if you were to be going to staying somewhere, you know, you think about the people up north who had to, with the rain and the floods, had to, you know, vacate their place. They would prefer to be staying in a place that they had their own room, that they close the door. So, you know, evacuation centres are not the ideal. It helps children to really feel that they are regarded as really valuable, so that they have that own sense of belonging, safety, and security in your home. I talked a bit earlier about sometimes they just need to retreat, and so that if they can retreat to their own bedroom, especially when things get overwhelming. I mean, it can be overwhelming things they can see your own children and you getting along really well. And sometimes that just triggers some stuff off for them. So they just need to be able to have their own space. Sometimes siblings, if they come as a group, can share a bedroom, but that has to be deemed appropriate by the department. We also ask if you're considering moving your own child or children to create space in your home for a foster child. It's always a good idea to do that first, so well ahead of time, so you can really gauge how it goes for your own child, because we don't want to build any animosity between your own child and the young person, especially if they, you know, your own child has lost their own personal space. Just doesn't seem fair. So do I have to own my home to be a foster carer? No, I think I said that earlier. So you can be renting, you can have a mortgage, you can be in public housing, or you may own your own home outright. The priority about your home is, one, it's physically safe. So that's an area that we cover, and suitable for fostering. But it's also that it's stable. So stability is something the young people haven't had for most part, and why they have come into care. So we're asking that you're not going to be moving, I think I said earlier, in the next few months, or you're going to be evicted, or you know, you just have to sell for whatever reason. So it's just about that, no plan to move or make any big changes to your home. So, you know, you may, if you're renting or public housing, you may have to get extra permission to be able to do that from either Department of Housing or through property management. So that be your responsibility to check that out. Can I have my own children and foster children? Definitely. So when we're going through the assessment process, your family situation is considered. And it's important in terms of when you're making decisions around age and the needs level of the young person coming into care. We kind of have a general guide. It's not strict, so we like to work it through the assessment of placing children in your care who are younger than your youngest child. And that's just allowing carers to be able to focus on each child and address their individual needs. We also want to make sure your own children are old enough to be able to tell you if they're not liking what's going on, or the fostering system is not working for them. So we kind of say, if you have really young children, we might say it might be best to postpone going through the application process for a few years. Will all family be involved in the assessment process? Yes, everyone in the household has to be part of the process. That will include during the formal assessment process, which will also look at background checks, medical and reference checks. It can also include through the informal assessment process. So our assessor may ask your children, depending on their age, how they feel about a child, a young person coming into their home. about how they feel about sharing their toys, about sharing your time, how it might impact on routines, consequences. We'll ask what kind of discipline they have experienced with you. Younger children, we might ask that they draw a picture. At the end of the day, the purpose is really to ensure that everyone in your household is prepared for what this significant change will mean to your home and for them and any routine or experiences. Okay, so how are children matched to foster carers? So this begins as we get to know you, especially through the assessment process. We'll work together to discuss age and needs of children that are best able to be supported within your family and through your confidence, your level of confidence, your skills and your comfort levels. We do our best to match children and carers around important things, as I said earlier, culture, religion, language. And it's best to support a child to develop their own identity and sense of belonging. So when we come to matching, the needs and well-being and interests of the young person in care comes first before your needs. So we really that's our first and best interest of the child has to be the priority. Can I choose the age and gender of the child? So part of the assessment process is again about discussing around your skill set, around the dynamics in your household. Some people are open to ages and gender and others perhaps due to their own personal parenting experience are more specific, so about a particular age or gender. What we will say, if you have very strict preferences, it may mean you're not available to care for many children. So if you're going to say, I only want a baby 0 to 6 months and it has to be a female, it's probably going to be limited when we might give you a call and match. We'd also really wanted to check if you get to the assessment space, what would be your motivation to care if you're really strict about the type, the ages and gender of a child. So do children in care have ongoing relationships with their families? Yes, in most cases they do. We know from research and experience that maintaining connection with family in whatever way possible does help to ensure long-term positive outcomes for children in care. The parents and family members of children in care love them and want them to do well. They also may have important information about the child that could benefit you in as part of the care team to be able to support the child. So, like I said before, it may be grandparents, it may be adult siblings who know something like a favorite storybook, a favorite blanket, or I don't know what the latest stuff. My kids were into the Wiggles. So, it was something that they always got calmed with or were able to focus if they could listen to some songs from the Wiggles. So we also know when carers and families, parents, extended family work together really well, the best outcomes for children just are always possible. So it's great. So what happens if the placement working out? So this can happen. It can be really traumatic or really sad in how it's done. So for us, stability is really important for children in order for them to do well and thrive and to be able to address and heal whatever trauma experience they had. It's not in the best interest of a child to move continuously. So that's where we really need resilient carers who are able to work within the care team to push through the hard days. So maybe a few weeks into a placement and you're going, I can't do this. I thought I was able to do it. We'd really ask you to give us a call first, our case managers, and really talk through what are some of the difficulties for you. And we may have a solution. We may even put our heads together with you and come up with a solution. So we know that children, young people often blame themselves if a placement does not work out. So we want to have that that whatever we can do to minimize a placement ending, we'd want to be able to work with you. So it's that asking for help, being really open to extra learning, so training and supports. We really do need carers who are able to stick it out through the tough times and, again, celebrate the small wins and have some fun. At the end of the day, it's knowing support will never be far away. But we also know if ending a placement has to occur, we will be there to support you and the young person. It's a really good life experience for a young person to know that adults can make sure goodbyes are done well, that they're not always just like ripping a Band-Aid off, never seeing that person again. So whatever way we can, if it has to end, we want to do it well. Yeah. So the assessment process. Okay, how long does that take? How much I've got? 8 minutes. Wow. Got to talk fast. So really, it really is an important step to make sure the environments we're providing for children are safe and nurturing, and that applicants are ready to take on the role as a carer. From the time you apply, it takes 5 to 6 months, but it can vary depending on your circumstances. So remembering fostering is all about timing. So you may start off and you're on your family journey and you do the training, and then you get through halfway through the assessment process and something happens that you've really got to prioritize. It's perfectly all right to take a break and we revisit it later. So easy done. So the types of support you'll receive as a carer. So we like to make sure you feel that you're never alone in your carer journey. It can be difficult to comprehend initially some of the experiences children and young people bring with them. So it's important that carers feel supported and confident in your role. So we do, besides the initial training that you do with us before the assessment stage, we have ongoing training and learning supports available. You'll also work with a case manager who can work with you. So it can be some training that you identify. And so we just but we also have on our internet a whole heap of training that you can do online. We have a 24/7 on-call support that's really important. So just give us a call. No question or no situation is ever a wrong one to make to on-call. Sometimes you just need to talk through and feel supported in what your responses are. So you receive a financial support that that is really about extra financial support for that young person that they may cover. So food, transport. We have special support. So we have a team of workers within LWB, therapeutic specialists, that may be able to work with you and the young person with that extra on the spot in the home support. Talked earlier about respite. So if you're providing short-term, long-term care, respite is a great way for you to utilise to recharge your batteries. Remembering it's also great for the young person as well. So never, ever not take respite. We also have carer networks. So we encourage carers to really develop peer supports within the carer community. It's like being a parent. It's talking to other carers and other parents that, or other parents who know what it's like. Doesn't matter how many books you read. It's good to talk to someone who's been through it already. So we might just check if there's any questions from the chat box that I haven't covered. How we go, Louise?
Hey, well done, Elizabeth. Okay, we do. We have some great questions. Well done, everyone that's typed the questions in. Right. First one, I have 2 spare bedrooms. Can I request siblings so they can stay together and not get separated?
Yes, so we love people who want to take sibling groups. Yes. It's really hard because, you know, sometimes people put their hand up for one child. So definitely, if you're saying you have a sibling group of 2, yeehaw, fantastic. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, we like that, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay, next one up. Just wondering if I can afford to foster, depending on what expenses I might need to cover myself.
So, okay, so it's always important. The allowance that's provided is tax-free. So the government's worked out a pro rata that should cover, electricity, water, food, bit of transport to and from school. But and depending on your income, you may be entitled to Centrelink family tax benefits, but only you can determine that. Excuse me. It is also about looking at, and you work with your case manager around this, if there's extra needs that you think would be identified for a young person. Excuse me, is speak up. That's another, is put it forward, propose it, always propose it. The worst you may get is a no. The best you may get is, yeah, we can give you all this extra money, especially if the specific needs identified. If while the child has been staying with you, but the need is not identified until 2-3 months later, still bring it up. So just speak with the case manager, and yeah, we don't want you to become poor because of it. So it is the state's responsibility to provide those extra supports.
Excellent. Okay, moving on. I don't have children of my own and think I might be better with an older child or teenager than a toddler. Is that okay to ask for a teenager?
Definitely. Oh,
music to our ears, isn't it?
It's a group that lots of people are hesitant to take on. So if you're putting your hand up for teenagers, you're going to be one of those rare people, almost extinct. So we're going to grab you. Yes. Get that person's name. We're calling them tomorrow.
Okay. Can the child go to the same school as my children, and it would be easier and make them feel a proper part of our family?
Yeah. So it's a really good question because there's no clear answer, straightforward black and white answer. It depends on the circumstances that the child came into care. So if they're under an emergency placement, so it's that 4 weeks, we really don't like to change schools. For some kids, that's been the safest place. So the same with short term, 6 months. If we uproot a child going to a new school and then they end up going home and have to go to back to the school they were at, that's instability for the child. Definitely in the long-term space, it's open for discussion. So it is definitely something we would say to you, you propose to the department and to us with the case manager. So, I mean, definitely, they're with you a year, 2 years, definitely being part of family and going all to the same school. As the child gets older too, they can express their views and wishes to the department, and the department has to take those seriously. But remember, it's about that stability.
Excellent. Are pets okay? I have a large dog who might want to lick a child to death.
Yes and no. So pets can be wonderful, especially around trauma healing. Can be really great for kids. So we always welcome pets. It'll be part of the assessment. So when I said household members, your pet and how your pet is will be assessed through that process. We also have to be aware in terms of the matching a young person. They may have experiences that's a bad experience with a dog. So regardless of how friendly and loving your dog is, it just triggers a whole heap of trauma for them. So we mightn't even, tap you on the shoulder to say, take this young person, because we just know they're not good. But, pets can be great. Even fish, like it doesn't have to be a dog. Fish in the tank can be great to stare at and help the child. So yes.
That's right. Well done. Okay, I'm working full-time and have an 8-year-old daughter, and my husband is retired. Would that be okay, possibly? Yes. Do you get the chance to choose the age of the child also?
Yes. So through the assessment process, our assessors will talk to you about what's your preference. So sometimes having the same gender as your own child. can be really beneficial. So yes, we can talk through all that. So it's a journey, but we just want to make sure the matching is all right for you. Your husband who's staying at home can be great, retired. We'll assess how active he or she wants to be involved and who will be responsible. So sometimes you have a young person who goes to school, but because of behaviours, so the behaviours that may happen at home because they can't handle the grief and loss will happen at school. So you may be required to pick them up earlier. So that can be good if there's an adult home and flexible. So
well done, excellent, great question. Two more. Do you try to keep children close to their family home, and how are the visits with families managed?
So generally, children are removed from a division within Victoria and are to be placed with carers within that division. So you are prone to be close, but some divisions are quite large, so it could be quite a ways away. And what was the second part of the question? Sorry, Louise. You're on mute.
Apologies. Do you try to keep children close to their family home, and how are the visits with families managed?
Yeah, so we do try to, especially when we're looking towards reunification. So depending, so as a care team informed by the department, it can also be court ordered, is sometimes those visits have to be supervised for the department because that informs how they might progress to being unsupervised. So you talk this all through with the assessor, but also you want to talk it through with your case manager. So we want to make sure you're comfortable and feel supported, so you're not left on your own. But for children, whatever stage they're at, it's a gradual process. Obviously, if a child is working towards reunification, we would hope to see that visits are unsupervised. It could be phone calls, so you might be asked to have the phone on speaker and you're able to monitor it. So it depends, but they're very good questions to ask at the commencement of a placement. Really good questions to ask.
Excellent.
But you're not expected to go solo with it at all.
No, not at all. Okay, I'm not sure what age range would best suit me. Can your organisation make this decision for me? And also, just to tag, families of origin, would they know where I live? Okay.
So one, we're not going to make the decision for you. We're going to make the decision with you as to what we would recommend. And we would talk that through. So really want to have those interviews, those conversations to explore. You are your own best expert. So we really want to tap into your skills and you feeling confident. So it really is just about having a conversation. So enshrined in legislation, parents have a right to know where their children are residing and staying at any given time. For those of you children of your own, they may be going for a sleepover. I think you're going to know the address of where they're at that sleepover, and you'll want to know a bit about the people, the adults that are in their house. It's pretty much the same. So they have a right to know. There is some parts of the legislation that the department may utilise to decide not to give the information to parents. It's rare, but if parents have a history of abducting their own child from carers for a placement, they may be seen not to have the details. But legislation says they have a right to know. If you have any worries or concerns, you just speak to the case manager about that at the time of considering a placement.
Excellent. And that's it.
That's it?
Brings us to a close.
Those are really good questions. All right. So I'm going to close off because I've got you to 7:06. Thank you so much. So where to from here is visit our website. It's a good place to find out more information about Life Without Barriers and what to do next. If you'd like to talk to a foster care specialist, you can contact the team on that number. All this stuff will be in the chat available. It'll also be available in an email you'll get tomorrow. And if you're not ready just yet, just join our mailing list. Let us know and we'll keep you up to date. We won't hand you. It's like once every few months. But, you know, it may not be the right time now, but maybe in a year's time it will. So that's it. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for staying past 7. You'll get to know me. I like to talk about fostering. It's a real passion of mine. Kids in need. So I could go on and on and on, but I won't. I need to have my dinner and my dry throat from talking too much. So
can I just add in there, guys?
Yes.
I have just popped in a call me back link. So if you any of you are interested, just click on that link and someone will call you back.
Fabulous.
Okay.
Thanks, you,
guys.
Louise.
Good night.
Thanks. Good night.